In Yellowstone, the deadliest decisions look like a perfect blue swimming pool. Those pools have killed at least 22 tourists since 1890. It starts in June 2016, when a 23-year-old stepped off the boardwalk to test the water. Colin Nathaniel Scott was 23 years old, a recent psychology graduate from Pacific University, and had just been accepted into a PhD program at Portland State. He worked at the Jackson Bottom Wetlands Preserve in Oregon. The people who knew him described him as bright, academically successful, and someone whose career was about to start. On June 7, 2016, he was on a sightseeing trip in Yellowstone National Park with his sister Sable. They drove to the Norris Geyser Basin, one of the most clearly marked thermal areas in the park, with signs every few meters warning visitors to stay on the boardwalk. Colin and Sable left the boardwalk. They walked roughly 225 yards into a closed area, looking for what park slang calls hot potting, finding a natural hot spring that happens to be at swimmable temperature, illegally soaking in it, and getting away with it. The pools at Norris are visually beautiful and look, in places, like calm, warm ponds. They are also, by location, some of the most lethal in the park. What Colin and Sable found that afternoon was a small, steaming pool that looked deceptively calm. He knelt at the edge. Sable filmed on her phone. He leaned forward, reportedly to test the temperature with his finger, the kind of casual gesture you make at a bath you're not sure is ready. The ground he was kneeling on was not ground. It was sinter crust, a thin, chalky layer of dissolved minerals that the spring's steaming water leaves behind as it cools. From above, it looks like rock. Up close, it looks like crusted snow. Underneath is the water that made it. Park reports describe it as fragile as eggshell and as deceptive as ice. The crust under Colin gave way. He pitched headfirst into the pool. The water around Norris Geyser Basin is near or above boiling point, and many of its pools are highly acidic. Contact at that temperature destroys nerve endings instantly. Whatever he inhaled in the first reflex strip burned his airway. Sable screamed. She could not reach him. She watched her brother disappear under the surface of a steaming, opaque pool. She ran for help. Rangers arrived, located the pool from her description and the phone footage, and saw a wallet, flip-flops, and partial remains floating on the surface. A thunderstorm rolled in. The recovery operation was abandoned for the day. By the next morning, the conditions inside the pool had done their work. A park report stated, in the flat language park reports use, that no significant human remains were recoverable. The water had not just killed him, it had effectively erased him. A CBS report summarized the case in 8 words. No significant human remains were left to recover. The death was ruled accidental. No charges were filed. Park officials in interviews later that summer made the same point that rangers had been making for a century. The wildlife in Yellowstone is not what kills tourists. The water is. What rarely got mentioned in the headlines was Sable. She had filmed the moment before her brother fell. She had been the one who had to describe the pool to rangers, locate it with them, watch the recovery team arrive. The footage on her phone was eventually used by investigators and never released to the public. She walked out of Norris Geyser Basin that afternoon with the only direct record of how Colin had died and nothing else of him to take home. In the summer of 1967, hundreds of young Americans were working seasonal jobs in Yellowstone. They were known among themselves as savages, park slang for concession employees, a label they wore with some pride. They worked long hours, drank in dormitories at night, and treated the backcountry areas the tourists were never shown as something close to their personal property. Some areas were genuinely safe to wander, some were not. The line between the two in the dark was not always obvious. On the night of July 12, 1967, a group of Lake Lodge employees walked into the backcountry near Nez Perce Creek for an illegal hot potting trip. They carried no flashlights. They had no fire permit. Among them was 20-year-old Brian Parsons from Nanuet, New York. Around midnight, Parsons and an 18-year-old co-worker named Ronald May broke off from the larger group for a swim in the dark. What they did not know, because they had not stopped to check, was that Nez Perce Creek was a region where moderately warm sections of the creek ran directly into pools fed by springs at boiling point temperature. The boundary between the two was a difference of inches. In the dark, the difference was invisible. Parsons stepped into a spring later measured at roughly 180 degrees Fahrenheit, about 82 degrees Celsius. The damage was instant. Skin and underlying tissue across most of his body suffered second and third degree burns. May rushed in to help him and ended up with severe burns on both legs. The group hauled Parsons out, evacuated him to a hospital in Salt Lake City, and watched him die several days later of burn complications. 8 years later, in the early hours of July 1st, 1975, somewhere between 10 and 20, Yellowstone employees gathered for another late-night hot potting party along the same stretch of Nez Perce Creek. The pattern was identical. Drink, swim, move between pools, trust local knowledge that did not exist on paper. Among them was Donald Watt Cressy, 24, from Bellevue, Washington, on a summer job at the Old Faithful Lodge. What Cressy entered was, almost to the inch, the same spring that had killed Parsons in 1967. The water that night was measured at 179 degrees Fahrenheit. Whether he was unable to climb out, lost consciousness, or simply did not surface in time is not clear from any of the surviving accounts. What is clear is that his body remained in the scalding water for more than 2 days before a recovery team was able to remove what was left of him. After Cressy's death, the U.S. Geological Survey gave the pool a name. It was officially listed as Dead Savage Spring, a phrase that worked on 2 levels at once. Savages was the local nickname for concession workers. Both of the dead men had been savages. The naming was, in its bleak way, the most honest memorial Yellowstone could give them. A pool that is killed once tends to be left alone. A pool that is killed twice gets named for the dead. 2 cases, 3 deaths, 1 spring. Hit subscribe so the next 4 find you. On July the 20th, 1981, David Allen Kerwin, 24, from La Cañada, California, pulled into the fountain paint pot area of Yellowstone in a truck driven by his friend Ronald Ratliff. In the back of the truck was Ratliff's dog, Moosey. The afternoon was warm. The thermal area was crowded. The plan was a quick stop to look at the pools and stretch their legs before continuing through the park. What happened next happened in the order of seconds. Moosey escaped from the vehicle. He ran across the boardwalk area and saw ahead of him what every dog sees when it sees a pool, a body of water. Celestine Pool was small, clear, and unmistakably blue. It was also approximately 93 degrees Celsius or 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Moosey jumped in. The sound a dog makes in near boiling water is not a sound the people who heard it have ever forgotten. Tourists on the boardwalk shouted. The air around the pool was already steaming. Moosey was howling, scrabbling against the slick crust at the edge, unable to climb out. Within a fraction of a minute, the dog was no longer moving in any way that suggested he was still alive. Curran was about 20 feet away. According to witnesses who later spoke to investigators, he hesitated for less than a second. Then, he dove in. Bystanders shouted at him not to. They knew the temperature. Many of them had just read the same warning signs Kerwin had walked past. He went into the pool head first, fully clothed, with the intention of pulling the dog out. He did not know, because almost no one knows until they touch it, that water at 200 degrees Fahrenheit is not a temperature you survive contact with. Third-degree burns are instantaneous across exposed skin. The pain, at that level, exceeds what nerves can transmit, then crosses into shock. Kerwin managed to climb out. The accounts of what he did next, taken from the witnesses who pulled him onto the boardwalk, agree on one detail. He looked at his arms and the skin coming off his body and said, more or less, "That was stupid. How bad am I?" He was airlifted to a burn center in Salt Lake City. He died the following morning of organ failure, secondary to burns covering essentially his entire body. His eyes had been burned in the dive. The dog was never recovered. Observers in the days that followed reported unusual bubbling in the pool, which rangers attributed to fats and oils breaking down in the water. There were no criminal charges. The case became, in the years that followed, one of the most retold Yellowstone deaths in the entire park's history. Not because Kerwin was reckless in the way most hot spring victims are reckless, but because he was not. He had not climbed a fence. He had not gone hot potting. He had not been drinking on duty. He had seen something he loved in trouble and had done the one thing humans are wired to do when that happens. The temperature of the water did not care about the reason. The case of Il-hun Ro, 70, of Los Angeles, is one of the few Yellowstone hot spring deaths that the park investigated entirely from the outside in. There were no witnesses. There was no immediate report. There was no missing persons inquiry for more than 2 weeks. There was simply a shoe with part of a human foot inside it floating on the surface of a pool called Abyss. Abyss Pool sits in the West Thumb Geyser Basin, a thermal area on the western edge of Yellowstone Lake. The pool's name describes what it is: a near vertical column of water approximately 53 feet deep, with surface temperatures averaging around 60 degrees Celsius or 140 degrees Fahrenheit. The boardwalk runs close to its edge. The signage tells visitors in standard Park Service language to stay on the boardwalk. The fences are unobtrusive. The pool itself, from above, is one of the most photogenic features in the park, a clear blue circle that looks from a certain angle, like a portal. What investigators eventually pieced together is roughly this. On the morning of July 31st, 2022, Il-hun Ro almost certainly stepped off the boardwalk near Abyss Pool, either for a closer view or for a photograph. He was alone. He was 70 years old. The terrain around the pool is fragile, often hidden under thin cinder crust, and the line between safe and unsafe is, in places, an arm's length. He fell in. What Abyss Pool does to a body, when given enough time, is what hot spring chemistry does anywhere in the park. The water is hot enough to cause immediate severe burns. The depth makes self-rescue effectively impossible. The mineral and acid content over hours and days breaks down soft tissue. By the time anything from Il-hun Ro's body returned to the surface, very little of him still existed in recognizable form. On the 16th of August, 2022, more than 2 weeks after he had entered the pool, a park employee on the West Thumb boardwalk noticed an object floating on the water. It was a shoe. Inside, it was part of a foot. The park immediately closed the boardwalk section, brought in dive and recovery teams, and began the difficult partial work of retrieving what could safely be retrieved. DNA analysis on the partial remains identified Il-hun Ro and confirmed he had been the missing visitor associated with that date. The National Park Service released a brief statement. The investigation determined there was an unwitnessed incident involving one individual, and no foul play occurred. A reporter for National Parks Traveler, in covering the identification, noted that at least 22 people had died from hot spring-related injuries in and around the park since 1890. The foot in the shoe became one of the most widely shared park death stories of the decade. What made Il-hun Ro's death unusual was not the cause. The cause was, by Yellowstone standards, ordinary. What made it unusual was the silence. He had stepped off a boardwalk into the most heavily monitored thermal area in the West, and the world had not noticed for 16 days. Sarah Hulfers was 20 years old, from Oroville, Washington, and working a summer job as a concession employee in Yellowstone in 2000. She was one of the same kind of seasonal workers the park had been employing since the 1920s. Young, transient, generally underpaid, and known among themselves by the same nickname that had given Dead Savage Spring its name. The work was physical. The hours were long. The nights, for most of them, ended in the dormitory complex near Old Faithful. On the night of 21st August 2000, Sarah and 2 of her co-workers went out for an unauthorized swim. It was not in a thermal pool. It was, depending on the version of the story, in one of the cooler creeks or pools the staff knew about. They had not asked permission. They had no reason to think permission would have been granted. Afterwards, in damp clothes and well past midnight, they started the walk back to their dormitory. The official, marked route would have taken them along a lit boardwalk through the Old Faithful complex. The route they chose instead was a shortcut off the boardwalk, across terrain that included Cavern Spring and a network of smaller thermal features. The decision to cut across was, in its own way, ordinary. People working long hours at 3 in the morning take the shortest path home. The ground in this part of the park, however, was not the same kind of ground as the path. From a distance, in moonlight, much of it looked solid. Up close, in the dark, much of it was cinder crust just above scalding water. One of the three stepped onto the wrong patch of ground. Within seconds, all three were in Cavern Spring, which the park had previously measured at approximately 178 degrees Fahrenheit. Whether they fell in sequence or together is not clear in the contemporaneous reports. What is clear is that all three sustained severe burns trying to climb out, that the climb itself caused additional contact with hot water and steaming rock, and that by the time emergency services reached them, large sections of clothing had fused into the skin underneath. The other two were critically injured, but survived. Sarah was airlifted to the Intermountain Burn Center in Salt Lake City. Her burns covered most of her body. Burn medicine in 2000 was not what it is now, and even now, burns at that percentage are routinely fatal. She died the following day. A spokesman for the Burn Center told the New York Times she had died of complications from very severe burns. The park did not classify the case as anything other than a tragic accident. There were no criminal proceedings. Among the seasonal staff, however, Sarah's death became a story that was retold to every new generation of summer employees, that even people who lived inside the park, who walked these paths every day, who thought they knew where the safe ground ended and the dangerous ground began, could be wrong in the dark. In August 1926, Pastor Gilbert Eakins, a middle-aged minister, was on a family vacation in Yellowstone. The park in 1926 was not the park of today. The boardwalks were minimal. The railings in most thermal areas were either absent or improvised. The signage existed, but was less aggressive. Most visitors arrived by automobile on the new park roads, and most of them, having traveled hundreds of miles to get there, wanted to stand as close as possible to the things they had come to see. The Eakins family stopped near a hot spring in the West Thumb Geyser Basin. The thermal feature was, like most at West Thumb, a clear blue pool surrounded by mineral-coated ground. The pastor walked to the edge, presumably to point something out to his family or to lean in for a better view of the water. The ground was wet. The mineral coating made it slippery. There was nothing between him and the pool. He slipped. He fell forward into the water. What killed him is the same thing that has killed most Yellowstone hot spring victims since, a combination of immediate severe burns from contact with near boiling water and the secondary injuries that follow. In Eakins's case, the secondary injuries were unusually direct. As he hit the water, the reflexive gasp of someone falling into a hot bath caused him to inhale and partially swallow boiling water. The damage to his mouth, throat, and lungs was internal as well as external. A doctor was present in the immediate vicinity. Other visitors helped pull him out of the spring within seconds. Even with rapid medical attention, the combination of external and internal burns was not survivable. He died while being transported away from the park. One modern summary describes the injury pattern in flat terms. He was burned all over his body, but inside as well, since he had swallowed boiling water. His death was not the first hot spring fatality in Yellowstone's history, and it would not be the last. It was, however, one of the first to be documented in detail in a way that survived in the park's permanent records. Pastor Eakins had not climbed a fence, he had not gone hot potting, he had not been drinking, taking a shortcut, or trying to save a dog. He had simply walked to the edge of a pool to look in. What his case demonstrated almost a century before Colin Scott, before Sarah Hulfers, before Ilhan Rowe, was that Yellowstone's hot springs did not require any particular act of recklessness to kill someone. They only required an act of curiosity at the wrong place with the wrong footing. Generations of subsequent victims would prove the point. In the decades after Eakins' death, the National Park Service slowly built the system that defines visitor management today. Boardwalks were extended, then rebuilt, then extended again. Signage moved from polite suggestion to plain warning. By the 1980s, large stretches of West Thumb had railings where, in 1926, a pastor had been free to step right to the edge. The infrastructure that exists at Yellowstone now is, in a real sense, an accumulated response to fatalities like his. Every length of railing was paid for by someone. On a summer day in 2011, 55-year-old Philip Contos was doing what he loved, riding his Harley-Davidson. He was part of a massive motorcycle protest ride in Onondaga, New York. Over 500 bikers had gathered to protest the state's mandatory helmet law, arguing it infringed on their personal freedom. For Philip and his fellow riders from ABATE, American Bikers Aim Toward Education, the dream was simple: the freedom of the open road, the wind in their hair, and the right to choose for themselves. Philip was making a statement by riding without a helmet, a visual symbol of his defiance against what he saw as government overreach. But his protest came to a sudden and deeply ironic end. While riding, Philip hit a bump, lost control of his motorcycle, and was thrown over the handlebars. He landed head first on the pavement. Paramedics arrived quickly, but his head injuries were catastrophic. He was pronounced dead at the hospital. The medical examiner's report was brutally clear. Philip Contos would have survived if he had been wearing a helmet. The investigation concluded it was a tragic accident, but the cause of death was undeniable. The very piece of safety equipment he was protesting would have saved his life. The irony was lost on no one. Police and media outlets immediately highlighted the case as a grim warning about the importance of helmets. The ultimate irony is that Philip died for a cause that in his final moments proved to be fatally flawed. He was a martyr for a movement, but his death became the single best argument against it. His final ride was a powerful statement, just not the one he intended to make. Dean Steele, a 22-year-old British tourist, was living the dream with his two friends, driving a convertible on the German Autobahn at night. On a stretch with no speed limit, they were pushing the car to its limits, a thrilling experience for any tourist. The dream was to have an epic European road trip, full of adventure and unforgettable moments. For Dean, that meant capturing the perfect, edgy selfie to prove he was living life in the fast lane. Literally. As the car sped through the darkness, Dean decided it was the perfect time for a photo. He unbuckled his seatbelt, leaned over from the passenger seat, and tried to take a selfie with his friends. In that moment of distraction, the driver lost control of the car. The car swerved violently, throwing Dean from the vehicle onto the highway. He was then struck by another car. He died instantly at the scene. His two friends, who had remained buckled in, survived with injuries. The investigation painted a clear picture of recklessness, a combination of speed, no seatbelt, and the distraction of a selfie created a fatal cocktail. The police found his phone nearby, the final photos a testament to his last dumb decision. The irony is that in his quest to capture a moment of living on the edge, he fell right over it. The Autobahn is a symbol of German engineering and driving discipline, but for a tourist obsessed with getting the perfect shot, it became a death trap. You can't get likes when you're dead. His final photo wasn't an epic memory of his road trip. It was evidence in a fatal accident report. It's a brutal lesson that the most dangerous thing on the road isn't always the speed, but the stupidity of the person behind the camera. In 2014, near a wildlife park in Kenya, two men spotted a wild elephant. For most people, this would be a moment to keep a safe distance and observe the majestic animal from afar. For these two, it was a photo opportunity. Their dream, presumably, was to get an incredible up-close photo with one of the world's largest land animals. It was a chance to get a picture that would make them look brave and adventurous, a true once-in-a-lifetime shot. Ignoring the basic rules of wildlife encounters, the two men approached the elephant, getting within just a few meters to take selfies. The animal, feeling threatened by their presence, decided it had had enough of their photo shoot. The elephant charged. It trampled one of the men, killing him instantly. The other man managed to escape with injuries. The incident was so emblematic of this particular brand of stupidity that it was officially recognized by the Darwin Awards as the selfie with elephant case. The investigation was simple. A man got too close to a wild, dangerous animal, and the animal reacted defensively. It's a story as old as time, but with a modern social media-fueled twist. The irony is that these men saw a magnificent, powerful creature not as a wild animal to be respected, but as a prop for their social media profiles. An adult African elephant can weigh over 6,000 kilograms and run at 40 kilometers per hour. They are not props. They are one of the most dangerous animals in Africa. He didn't get a cool photo. He got a Darwin Award. It's a tragic and frankly dumb reminder that wild animals don't care about your Instagram feed and that nature's personal space is not to be violated. From a fatal protest against safety to a deadly selfie on the Autobahn and a fatal photo op with an elephant, we've seen how a single dumb decision can be the last one you ever make. But what happens when your stupidity doesn't just kill you, but an innocent person who tries to save you? Stick around, because after the break, we're heading to a Chinese zoo for a selfie with a walrus that had a tragic 2-for-1 ending. In May 2016, a Chinese businessman named Jia Lijun was visiting a wildlife park in Rongcheng, China. He became obsessed with getting the perfect video with the park's star attraction, a 1.5-ton walrus. He had reportedly been taking selfies and videos with the animal all day. The dream was to get a viral video, a clip that would show him playfully interacting with the massive sea creature. He wanted to show off, to create a moment that was both impressive and, in his mind, harmless. Despite warnings from staff, Jia got dangerously close to the walrus pool, even hanging over the edge to get a better angle. The walrus, perhaps thinking it was playing, grabbed him from behind and pulled him into the water. Jia, unable to swim, began to drown. The walrus's zookeeper of over 10 years, who had raised the animal since it was a baby, saw what was happening and jumped into the pool to save Jia. But the walrus, in its powerful and clumsy attempt to play with both men, held them both underwater. Both Jia Lijun and the zookeeper drowned. The park's attempt to save them was futile. The tragedy was captured on the park's surveillance cameras, a silent film of a stupid act leading to a double fatality. The investigation concluded that it was a tragic accident, but one caused entirely by the visitors' reckless behavior. The park was cleared of any wrongdoing, having provided adequate warnings. The ultimate tragedy here is that the only person who wasn't being reckless, the zookeeper, died because of the visitors' stupidity. Walruses might look like big, cuddly sea potatoes, but they are incredibly powerful and dangerous animals. The zookeeper knew this, but his instinct to save a life cost him his own. Jia wanted a cool video, but instead, he caused the death of an innocent man. It's a horrifying example of how one person's dumb decision can have fatal consequences for others. In 2011, the internet was obsessed with planking, a viral trend where people would lie face down, stiff as a board, in unusual and often public places. For 20-year-old Acton Beale in Brisbane, Australia, this was a trend he was willing to take to the next level. The dream was to get the ultimate planking photo. It was about one-upping his friends, getting a picture that was more daring, more extreme, and more memorable than anyone else's. It was about internet fame, however fleeting. On the night of May 15, 2011, after a night out with friends, Acton decided to attempt his most dangerous plank yet. He went out onto the 7th floor balcony of his apartment building and tried to plank on the narrow railing. As his friend tried to take a photo, Acton lost his balance and plunged 7 stories to his death. He was killed instantly on impact. The photo was never taken. The aftermath was immediate. The incident made international headlines and served as a brutal wake-up call about the dangers of viral trends. The Prime Minister of Australia even issued a public statement warning people to use common sense. The irony is that planking was, at its core, a completely harmless and silly meme. But in the competitive world of social media, the pressure to escalate, to do something more extreme, turned a harmless joke into a deadly game. Acton Beale wasn't the only person injured or killed while planking, but his story became the most famous cautionary tale. He died for a meme. His quest for a funny photo ended in a tragedy that was anything but. It's a perfect and perfectly dumb example of how an innocent internet trend can escalate into deadly overconfidence. In a high-rise apartment in Buenos Aires, Argentina, a couple was having a violent argument. The fight, which took place on their 8th-floor balcony, was about to take a murderous turn. For the man, the dream was, chillingly, to get rid of his wife. In a fit of rage, he pushed her off the balcony, sending her plunging towards the street below. But his plan failed spectacularly. The woman didn't fall to her death. Instead, she managed to grab onto a bundle of electrical cables, where she hung, suspended high above the ground. Her husband, seeing that she had survived, decided to finish the job. He jumped from the balcony, apparently intending to either knock her off the cables or to die with her. But he missed. He plunged past her, falling to his death on the pavement below. The woman, battered and bleeding but alive, managed to swing herself to a neighboring balcony and climb to safety. She survived the fall, and she survived her husband's murder-suicide attempt. The investigation was a bizarre one for the police. They arrived to find a dead man on the street and his intended victim, alive and relatively well, on a neighbor's balcony. It was a clear-cut case of domestic violence with a twist of instant karma. The irony is almost poetic. In his attempt to murder his wife, the man only succeeded in killing himself. His own impulsive, violent act led directly to his own death, while his intended victim survived. It's a dark and twisted story, but one that serves as a powerful example of instant justice. He thought he was ending her life, but he only ended his own. It's a brutal and brutally dumb case of the universe delivering a punchline that was anything but funny. Gary Hoy was a 38-year-old corporate lawyer at a prestigious law firm in Toronto. He was known for being a bit of a showman, and he had a party trick that was famous around the office. He liked to prove how strong the windows of their 24th floor office in the Toronto Dominion Centre were. His dream was to impress people, to show off his fearlessness and the marvels of modern engineering. His trick was simple. He would run full tilt at the window and bounce harmlessly off the unbreakable glass. He had done it many times before. On July 9, 1993, Hoy was giving a tour of the office to a group of new articling students. Wanting to give them a memorable demonstration, he decided to perform his famous party trick. He ran towards the window and threw himself against it. As expected, the glass didn't break. But then he did it again. On his second attempt, the glass still didn't break, but the entire window frame popped out of the wall. Gary Hoy plunged 24 stories to his death. The students watched in horror. The aftermath was a media sensation. The story of the lawyer who fell out of an unbreakable window became a modern urban legend, later featured on shows like Mythbusters and 1,000 Ways to Die. The investigation revealed that while the glass itself was incredibly strong, the window frame was not designed to withstand the repeated impact of a 160-pound man running at it. It was a case of fatal overconfidence in a system he didn't fully understand. The irony is that he was right. The glass never broke. But he was also fatally wrong. His party trick, a symbol of his confidence and showmanship, became his undoing. It was a cartoonishly dumb death, a real-life Wile E. Coyote moment that has been immortalized as one of the most famous Darwin Awards of all time. In a zoo in Calcutta, India, a man named Prakash was about to make a very, very bad decision. He was visiting the zoo with his wife, and for some reason, he became fixated on the Royal Bengal tiger enclosure. The dream, if you can call it that, was to get a photo of himself with the tigers, or perhaps to create some kind of spiritual connection. He bought a garland of flowers, the kind used in religious ceremonies, and decided he needed to get closer. Ignoring the shouts of his wife and other zoo visitors, Prakash climbed over the fence of the tiger enclosure. He then jumped into the moat that separated the tigers from the public. He waded through the water and climbed up onto the land where two tigers were waiting. He then threw the garland of flowers around the neck of one of the tigers. The tiger, unsurprisingly, was not amused. It swiped at him with its paw, and then, along with the other tiger, it attacked. The crowd of onlookers screamed in horror, throwing stones and shouting in a desperate attempt to distract the animals. Zoo staff eventually managed to scare the tigers away, but it was too late. Prakash was dragged out of the enclosure, bleeding profusely. He was rushed to the hospital, but he died from his injuries. The investigation was straightforward. A man willingly entered a tiger enclosure and was killed. It was a case of profound stupidity, a complete disregard for the boundary between man and predator. The irony is that in his quest for some kind of connection with the tigers, he only found their most primal instinct. The scene was described as cinematic and intense, a crowd of helpless people watching a man get mauled to death because of his own foolishness. It's a brutal reminder that tigers are not spiritual guides, they are apex predators. Colin Nathaniel Scott, a 23-year-old from Portland, Oregon, embarked on what he likely envisioned as a memorable trip to Yellowstone National Park in June 2016. A recent Pacific University graduate, Scott was described as an outdoorsman, familiar with the backcountry and comfortable in nature. He had even volunteered at Jackson Bottom Wetlands Preserve in Oregon, answering nature questions for visitors, suggesting he possessed a degree of environmental awareness. Accompanied by his sister, Sable Scott, Colin ventured into the Norris Geyser Basin, an area renowned for its vibrant thermal features, but also notorious for its extreme dangers. The basin is a landscape of superheated water, acidic pools, and thin, unstable ground, all clearly marked with numerous warning signs advising visitors to stay on designated boardwalks. These warnings are not mere suggestions. They are vital directives born from a long history of tragic incidents. Yet, for reasons that remain perplexing, Colin and his sister deliberately strayed from the designated boardwalk, venturing more than 200 yards into the treacherous terrain. Their objective? To find a secluded spot for an illegal soak in one of the thermal pools, a practice colloquially known as hot potting. This act, while seemingly innocuous to some, is explicitly forbidden due to the extreme temperatures and corrosive nature of the water and the very real danger of falling through the fragile crust. The park's regulations are not arbitrary. They are the result of countless incidents and a deep understanding of the unpredictable and deadly forces at play in Yellowstone's geothermal areas. Ignoring these rules is not just a minor infraction, it's an invitation to disaster. As they searched for their illicit bathing spot, Colin bent over to test the water temperature with his hand. In that fateful moment, the ground beneath him, likely a thin crust of sinter over a boiling cauldron, gave way. He plunged into the churning, superheated, and highly acidic water. His sister, Sable, witnessed the horrific event unfold. In a desperate attempt to help, she filmed the incident, perhaps hoping to document the tragedy or to aid in a future rescue. However, the conditions were too extreme. The water in the Norris Geyser Basin can reach temperatures between 199 to 212 degrees Fahrenheit, 93 to 100 degrees Celsius, and is highly acidic, capable of dissolving organic matter rapidly. The combination of scalding heat and corrosive chemicals meant that Colin's body began to dissolve almost immediately. By the time rangers were able to attempt a recovery operation the following day, only a few personal items, including his wallet and flip-flops, and fragments of his body remained. His death was officially classified as an accidental death, serving as a grim cautionary tale about the dangers of ignoring park regulations and the devastating consequences of underestimating the power of Yellowstone's thermal features. Yellowstone officials publicly used the case as a stark example of how breaking the rules in the park can lead to irreversible tragedy. The incident underscored the park's constant struggle to balance visitor access with safety in an environment that is both beautiful and deadly. It highlighted the critical importance of respecting the natural hazards and adhering to the established safety protocols, which are in place to protect visitors from the very real and often unseen dangers that lie beneath the surface of Yellowstone's seemingly serene landscapes. The tragic outcome served as a potent reminder that nature, in its rawest form, demands respect, and that human curiosity, when unchecked by caution, can lead to the most profound and irreversible consequences. The image of a young man, full of life and promise, dissolving into the very earth he sought to explore, remains a chilling testament to the park's unforgiving beauty. Justin Guthrie, a 43-year-old from St. Anne, Missouri, was an active and experienced base jumper, not a casual tourist. He was drawn to the extreme sport, which involves parachuting or wingsuit flying from a fixed structure or cliff. However, even for seasoned professionals, certain locations are deemed too dangerous. In August 2024, Guthrie chose to attempt an illegal base jump from Yavapai Point on the south rim of the Grand Canyon National Park in Arizona. The Grand Canyon, while offering unparalleled beauty, is also a place of immense danger, particularly for activities like base jumping, which are strictly prohibited within national parks due to the inherent risks. Experienced instructors who reviewed the site later stated that no seasoned jumper would have chosen that specific cliff, citing its underhung nature, the lack of a decent landing area, and the turbulent summer air conditions. These factors combined to create an exceptionally hazardous environment, even for someone with Guthrie's experience. His decision to proceed, despite these obvious dangers, suggests a pursuit of adrenaline and perhaps a desire for unique footage from a famous viewpoint overlooking the clear and present dangers. The Grand Canyon's sheer scale and the unpredictable nature of its air currents make it a particularly unforgiving environment for such extreme sports. The allure of the forbidden, the challenge of conquering a seemingly unconquerable feat, often blinds individuals to the very real and often fatal consequences of their actions. For Guthrie, the Grand Canyon represented the ultimate stage for his daring pursuit, a stage that would ultimately claim his life. Around 7:30 a.m., Justin climbed over the safety barrier at Yavapai Point and launched himself into the vast expanse of the canyon. He deployed his parachute, but the treacherous air currents and the cliff's geometry immediately compromised his trajectory. Instead of gliding safely into open canyon space, his canopy was caught by the wind and dragged towards the sheer rock face. He slammed into the rock or steep slopes approximately 500 feet below the rim, dying instantly from the impact. His body was located roughly 400 feet below the rim by park rangers and recovered via technical rescue. Investigations by park authorities and the medical examiner confirmed the scenario, classifying his death as fatal blunt force trauma from impacting rock and ground after a failed base jump. Outdoor publications later dissected the jump, stressing that an experienced base jumper would never have picked that cliff, especially in summer when hot air boiling out of the canyon creates nasty turbulence. Guthrie's death became a stark reminder that even expertise and experience cannot override the fundamental laws of physics and the inherent dangers of a chosen location. His pursuit of an extreme thrill ultimately led to an extreme and fatal consequence, serving as a cautionary tale for those who believe they can conquer nature's most formidable challenges without absolute respect for its power and unpredictability. The incident highlighted the park's unwavering stance against illegal and dangerous activities, emphasizing that the rules are in place to prevent such tragic outcomes. The Grand Canyon, a monument to geological time and natural power, became a tomb for a man who dared to defy its inherent dangers, a silent testament to the ultimate authority of nature. In a case that echoes the tragic fate of Colin Scott, Another Yellowstone visitor, 70-year-old Il-hun Rowe from Los Angeles, California, vanished into the depths of a hot spring in July 2022. The incident occurred at Abyss Pool in the West Thumb Geyser Basin, a location known for its stunning beauty and lethal temperatures. Unlike the Scott case, Rowe's entry into the water was unwitnessed, leaving authorities with a mysterious and grim puzzle to solve. On July 31, 2022, Rowe entered Abyss Pool, likely by stepping off the boardwalk, though the exact circumstances remain unknown. For over 2 weeks, the 140 degrees Fahrenheit, 60 degrees Celsius, water circulated and chemically attacked his body. On August 16th, park visitors noticed a shoe floating on the surface of the pool with what appeared to be part of a human foot inside. Rangers were alerted and they closed the area to investigate. The remains were retrieved, and DNA testing later confirmed the identity of Il-hun Rowe. The cause of death was determined to be thermal burns and scalding, leading to death and subsequent dissolution of soft tissues. The case serves as another stark reminder of the unforgiving nature of Yellowstone's thermal features and the critical importance of adhering to park safety regulations. Yellowstone is plastered with warnings that the ground is thin and lethally hot, and that visitors must stay on the boardwalk at all times. Rowe's death, while unwitnessed, is a testament to the fact that even a momentary lapse in judgment or a simple misstep can have fatal consequences. The sheer power of the geothermal features in Yellowstone is a constant, silent threat, and the park's regulations are designed to protect visitors from these hidden dangers. The tragic discovery of Rowe's remains underscored the park's commitment to investigating every incident thoroughly and using these unfortunate events as educational tools to prevent future tragedies. It reinforced the message that the beauty of Yellowstone's thermal areas comes with an inherent and deadly risk that must be respected at all times. The mystery surrounding his final moments only amplified the chilling reality of Yellowstone's dangers, a silent warning etched into the very landscape. In 1992, Greg Austin Gingrich, a 38-year-old father from Indiana, was visiting the Grand Canyon with his teenage daughter. In what can only be described as a tragic attempt at a dad joke, Gingrich decided to prank his daughter by pretending to fall into the canyon. His plan was to jump onto the guard wall, flail his arms as if he'd lost his balance, and then safely drop onto a small, sloping ledge he believed was just behind the wall. However, his performance was a little too convincing. As he began waving his arms dramatically, mimicking someone about to fall, his center of gravity shifted too far. Instead of landing on the ledge he had imagined, he stepped or pitched past it and went over the real edge. He plummeted about 400 feet into the Grand Canyon. Witnesses reported the fall, and park rangers responded to the scene. His body was located roughly 400 feet below the rim and recovered via technical rescue. From that height, rescuers knew it was a recovery, not a rescue. The cause of death was multiple blunt force injuries from impacting rock ledges and the canyon floor. The story became a legendary example of Grand Canyon stupidity, frequently referenced in "Dumb Ways to Die" compilations and Reddit threads. Popular write-ups explain that he hatched a very dangerous plan to pretend to fall, misjudged the distance, and actually went about 400 feet down. It's a perfect, punchy illustration of how a harmless prank can mutate into an instant Darwin Award material. The incident served as a stark reminder that even seemingly innocent actions can have catastrophic consequences in environments as unforgiving as the Grand Canyon. The tragedy highlighted the importance of respecting safety barriers and understanding the true scale of the dangers present in such vast natural landscapes. It also became a cautionary tale about the fine line between humor and recklessness, especially when one's life is literally hanging in the balance. The canyon, a silent observer, offered no second chances, transforming a moment of ill-conceived jest into an eternal tragedy. Ranjith Varma, a 55-year-old hiker from Manassas, Virginia, tragically learned the Grand Canyon's unforgiving motto, "Down is optional, up is mandatory." On September 9, 2023, Varma attempted a rim-to-rim hike in a single day, a physically punishing undertaking even in ideal weather. However, Varma, an East Coast resident and not a desert local, chose to attempt this feat during a late summer heat wave. The park warns people not to be in the inner canyon between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., but Varma and his companions started their long rim-to-rim route in the morning. As the day wore on, temperatures in the canyon soared, likely exceeding 100 to 110 degrees Fahrenheit, 38 to 43 degrees Celsius, on sections of the trail. The inner canyon can be 20 degrees Fahrenheit hotter than the rims, and in summer, trail temperatures can break 120 degrees Fahrenheit, 49 degrees Celsius. Late in the push, near the end of the route, Varma collapsed. Rangers responded, but he was pronounced dead. The suspected cause of death was heat-related illness, likely heat exhaustion progressing to heat stroke. Choosing a rim-to-rim in a day attempt during late summer heat despite park guidance and likely hiking through the 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. no-go window in the inner canyon were critical mistakes. Underestimating the climb out is a common and often fatal error. Going down is relatively easy, but climbing out in furnace conditions destroys people. The hours of downhill and then uphill in intense heat gradually dehydrated Varma and overloaded his core. Temperature. He probably experienced exhaustion, dizziness, possibly confusion, and nausea. As heat stroke sets in, sweating can stop, and the body essentially cooks from within. Despite intervention, heat stroke at that stage makes survival unlikely. Park officials repeat warnings: don't attempt rim-to-rim in a day during hot seasons. A Grand Canyon Conservancy spokesperson famously summed up the canyon logic: down is optional, but up is mandatory. Varma's tragic death served as a powerful reminder of the extreme physical demands of the Grand Canyon and the critical importance of heeding park warnings about heat and exertion. It underscored the fact that even experienced hikers can succumb to the elements if they underestimate the severity of the conditions and push their bodies beyond their limits. The incident highlighted the park's ongoing efforts to educate visitors about the dangers of extreme heat and the necessity of proper planning and hydration when undertaking strenuous activities in the canyon. His story is a somber testament to the fact that even the most determined spirit cannot overcome the brutal realities of nature when caution is cast aside. In August 2022, an unnamed 44-year-old male visitor became another victim of the Grand Canyon's allure. This visitor fit a common and tragic profile: a middle-aged tourist who wanted the best view rather than the safest spot. He left the official trail and moved onto an unmarked ledge close to the edge, likely for a better vantage point or a photo. While maneuvering on loose or uneven rock, he slipped and fell about 200 feet down the canyon wall. Authorities were notified and began a recovery operation. Rangers located his body approximately 200 feet below the rim, and technical rescue crews rappelled or used rope systems to reach and recover the body. The cause of death was multiple blunt force injuries from a roughly 200-foot fall. At that height, even a partial tumble, rather than a clean free fall, is unsurvivable. Leaving the trail near a sheer drop against every piece of official safety advice was the fatal decision. He stepped onto loose gravel or fractured rock at the rim. The ground shifted, his foot skidded, and his center of gravity went past the edge. With nothing to grab, he tipped forward and began tumbling down the steep rock. Repeated impacts caused devastating injuries before he came to rest on the slope below. Officials again emphasized that many canyon falls involve people leaving trails or climbing over walls for photos and views. This case was folded into a broader picture of preventable Grand Canyon deaths, often linked to earlier selfie fall cases, underlining that disregard for the edge is a recurring, deadly mistake. The incident served as a stark reminder of the dangers of venturing off marked trails and the allure of a perfect photo overriding common sense. It highlighted the park's continuous struggle to prevent visitors from taking unnecessary risks in pursuit of social media fame or a unique perspective, often with fatal consequences. The tragedy underscored the importance of staying on designated paths and respecting the inherent dangers of the canyon's precipitous edges. His desire for a unique photograph, a fleeting moment of visual gratification, ultimately cost him his life, a poignant example of the deadly consequences of prioritizing aesthetics over safety in a perilous environment. Not all national park deaths are accidental. In a case that shocked the nation, 25-year-old Cody Lee Johnson was murdered by his new wife, 22-year-old Jordan Lynn Graham, in Glacier National Park in July 2013. The case, which was covered extensively in news and true crime TV, is a chilling departure from the usual stories of tourist misadventure. It provides a clear criminal and sentencing arc, making it a famous honeymoon murder in a U.S. national park. On July 7, 2013, just 8 days after their wedding, Graham pushed Johnson off a cliff in the loop area of the Going to the Sun Road during an argument. He fell 200 to 300 feet to his death. Graham initially lied to authorities, claiming Johnson had disappeared with friends. However, her story quickly unraveled. She later admitted to pushing him, claiming it was an accident during a heated argument. She stated that he had grabbed her arm and she had pushed him in response, causing him to fall. However, the evidence suggested a more sinister motive. Graham was charged with first-degree murder, but later pleaded guilty to second-degree murder as part of a plea bargain. She was sentenced to 30 years in prison. The case stands as a stark reminder that the dangers in national parks are not always natural. While most visitors contend with the forces of nature, Cody Lee Johnson's tragic end came at the hands of the person he had just promised to spend his life with, a chilling testament to the fact that human darkness can be as deadly as any cliff or geyser. The case drew national attention, not only for its tragic nature, but also for the unusual circumstances of a newlywed couple's honeymoon ending in murder. It highlighted the complexities of criminal investigations in remote national park settings and the challenges faced by law enforcement in piecing together the truth behind such a shocking event. The incident served as a grim reminder that even in the most beautiful and serene environments, human actions can lead to the most horrific outcomes. The picturesque backdrop of Glacier National Park became the scene of a deeply personal and ultimately fatal betrayal, a stark contrast between natural beauty and human depravity. Eagle Point is one of the most visually striking locations at Grand Canyon West, famous for its dramatic unfenced edges and the nearby Skywalk Glass Bridge. It's a place where the earth simply ends, dropping vertically into a void that stretches for 1,000 feet before hitting the canyon floor. In March 2019, a man in his 50s from Hong Kong arrived here as part of a tour group, eager to capture the scale of the landscape. Like so many others, he wasn't content with the view from a safe distance. He wanted a perspective that felt personal, something that would truly convey the depth of the canyon to his friends and family back home. He walked out toward the rim, moving past the warning signs that the Hualapai tribe had placed to keep visitors back from the unstable edges. At Eagle Point, there are no railings to lean on, only the raw, ancient rock and the wind. As he positioned himself for a photo, his focus was entirely on the frame of his camera, his eyes locked on the digital display rather than the ground beneath his feet. In a split second, the mundane act of photography turned into a nightmare. He stumbled, perhaps on a loose piece of limestone or a patch of uneven gravel, and his momentum carried him past the point of no return. Witnesses watched in horror as he vanished over the edge, plummeting a full 1,000 feet down the vertical rock face. The fall was so immense that authorities had to close the entire observation area for the rest of the day, just to coordinate a helicopter recovery. It was a tragic, senseless end to a vacation, a life traded for a photo that was never even taken. The Hualapai authorities were blunt in their assessment. The signs were there, the danger was obvious, but the lure of the edge proved more powerful than the instinct for survival. It's a recurring theme at the canyon, the belief that the ground is as solid as it looks, right up until the moment it isn't. The recovery team eventually located his body on a ledge far below, a grim task that required technical precision in a landscape that offers no second chances. Mather Point is often the very first stop for visitors entering Grand Canyon National Park, a heavily developed overlook with paved walkways and sturdy metal railings. It's designed to be the safest place to view the canyon, yet even here, the desire for a better view can lead to disaster. In July 2020, 59-year-old Maria Salgado Lopez was visiting the South Rim with her family. It was the 4th of July weekend, a time of celebration and crowded trails. Maria, an Arizona resident who should have been familiar with the desert's unforgiving nature, decided to step off the designated path near Mather Point to find a more dramatic angle for a family photo. She bypassed the railings, stepping onto the raw terrain that lines the rim. To many tourists, the area just beyond the fence looks like a natural extension of the trail, but in reality, it's a crumbling edge of weathered rock and loose soil. While she was attempting to pose or frame a shot with her family, her footing gave way. She didn't fall 1,000 feet like the man at Eagle Point, but at the Grand Canyon, you don't need a massive drop for the results to be fatal. She tumbled roughly 100 feet down a steep rocky slope. Park rangers were alerted almost immediately, but by the time they reached her body on a ledge below the rim, there was nothing they could do. The National Park Service used the tragedy as a somber reminder for the holiday crowds. The railings aren't suggestions, and the trails aren't just for convenience. They are the only thing separating a pleasant afternoon from a catastrophic fall. Maria's death was a stark illustration of how quickly a familiar, seemingly safe environment can turn lethal when you decide that the rules of the park don't apply to you. Her family, who had been laughing and taking pictures just moments before, were left to deal with a sudden violent loss in a place that is supposed to inspire awe, not grief. The investigation confirmed what everyone already knew. She had simply stepped too far into a world that doesn't offer second chances to those who ignore the boundaries. Pipe Creek Vista is a quieter, more contemplative spot along the South Rim, offering sweeping views of the inner canyon without the massive crowds of Mather Point. In July 2024, 20-year-old Abel Joseph Mejia arrived here as part of a church mission trip. Abel was a student at Indiana Bible College, described by his peers as a young man with a gentle spirit and a bright future. He was at the canyon to experience its majesty, but like so many young visitors, he likely underestimated how quickly the terrain can betray you when you're distracted by the view. Around 10:30 in the morning, the park's communication center received a frantic report that a visitor had fallen from the vista. Search and rescue teams were deployed immediately, eventually locating Abel's body 400 feet below the rim, nearly a quarter-mile away from the main overlook. While the official reports categorized it as an accidental fall, the sheer distance he plummeted suggests he had moved dangerously close to an unprotected edge, likely seeking a better perspective for a photo or a moment of reflection. At 20 years old, there's a sense of invincibility that often overrides. The warning signs, a feeling that a slip or a trip is something you can recover from. But at the edge of a 400-foot drop, there is no recovery. The momentum of a single misstep is enough to carry you into the void. Abel's death was part of a particularly deadly summer at the park, a season where the canyon seemed to be claiming lives at an accelerated rate. His college and church community were devastated, left to mourn a young man who had traveled across the country to do good, only to lose his life in a split second of misplaced confidence. It's a reminder that the canyon doesn't care about your intentions or your character. It only responds to the laws of physics. When you stand on the edge of a 400-foot drop, you are entrusting your entire existence to the friction of your shoes and the stability of a rock that has been eroding for millions of years. While falls from the rim capture the most headlines, the true silent killer of the Grand Canyon is the heat. In June 2021, 53-year-old Michelle Mader from Ohio set out on what was supposed to be a classic backpacking adventure. She was an experienced hiker, attempting a multi-day trek from the Hermit Trail to the Bright Angel Trail, a route that traverses the deep exposed heart of the canyon. But Michelle made a fatal error. She chose to hike in mid-June, a time when the inner canyon transforms into a literal oven. As she descended deeper into the chasm, the temperature began to climb far beyond what the human body can safely endure. By the time she reached the Tonto Trail, the mercury was pushing past 115 degrees Fahrenheit. In the inner canyon, there is no shade, no breeze, and the dark rocks radiate heat back at you, creating a convection effect that can cook a person from the inside out. Michelle began to show signs of heat illness, disorientation, confusion, and a loss of physical coordination. She eventually became unconscious on the trail, miles away from help. By the time other hikers found her and alerted rangers the following day, she was already deceased. The National Park Service is very clear about the dangers of summer hiking, explicitly advising visitors to stay out of the inner canyon between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Michelle likely thought her experience and her gear would be enough to see her through, but the desert heat is an absolute force that doesn't negotiate. Her death was a tragic example of how even a well-prepared hiker can be overwhelmed by the sheer intensity of the canyon's climate. She wasn't a victim of a fall or a wild animal. She was a victim of a landscape that becomes uninhabitable for several hours every day. Her story serves as a grim warning to anyone who thinks they can power through the desert sun. The heat doesn't just make you tired. It shuts down your brain and your organs, leaving you helpless in a place where the only way out is a grueling uphill climb that your body is no longer capable of making. The Tuip area of the Grand Canyon is one of its most remote and least visited sections, located on the western edge of the North Rim. It's a place of rugged beauty and profound solitude, accessible only by long, unpaved roads that can shred tires and trap the unwary. There are no visitor centers here, no water stations, and very little shade. In July 2023, a 57-year-old woman decided to attempt an 8-mile day hike in this unforgiving environment during an excessive heat warning. She was looking for the real Grand Canyon experience, away from the crowds of the South Rim, but she found a reality that was far more brutal than she anticipated. As she moved across the exposed plateau, the temperature soared well over 100 degrees. In Tuip, the heat is relentless, a physical weight that drains your fluids and your energy with every step. At some point during her hike, she collapsed, slipping into unconsciousness as her body's cooling systems failed. Because of the area's extreme remoteness, help was hours away. A ranger didn't reach her until 1 o'clock the following morning, only to find that she had already passed away on the trail. Her death was a textbook case of underestimating the desert. An 8-mile hike might seem manageable in a cooler climate, but in the high desert summer, it's a marathon of survival. She had entered a wilderness where there is no margin for error, and she did so at the worst possible time. The National Park Service uses incidents like this to emphasize that remote also means unreachable in an emergency. When you hike in a place like Tuip during a heat wave, you are essentially on your own. If you go down, you stay down. Her story is a somber reminder that the canyon's beauty is inseparable from its lethality. She sought solitude and found it, but it was a solitude that offered no escape when the environment turned against her. The sheer distance and the difficulty of the terrain meant that even the most heroic rescue efforts would have been too late. She died in the silence of the desert, a victim of a plan that failed to account for the absolute power of the Arizona sun. The South Kaibab Trail is one of the most popular routes into the canyon, offering spectacular panoramic views that seem to go on forever. But it's also a sun trail, meaning it has almost no shade and is directly exposed to the afternoon sun. In early July 2025, a 67-year-old man from San Antonio, Texas, set out to hike this iconic path during a severe regional heat wave. Being from Texas, he likely felt he was accustomed to high temperatures, but the Grand Canyon is a different kind of beast. It's an inverted mountain where the hardest part of the hike, the climb back up, happens when you are already exhausted and the day is at its hottest. He made it down into the canyon, but the return trip proved to be his undoing. As he struggled back up the steep switchbacks below Cedar Ridge, the temperature in the inner canyon was pushing deep into the triple digits. The physical exertion of climbing thousands of vertical feet in that kind of heat is more than the human heart and cooling systems can handle. He collapsed on the trail, unresponsive and beyond the help of fellow hikers who tried to assist him. By the time rangers arrived, he was dead. His death was part of a tragic pattern that park officials see every year: older hikers who overestimate their fitness and underestimate the unique physiological toll of the canyon. The South Kaibab doesn't just test your legs, it tests your entire cardiovascular system under extreme stress. He died just a few miles from the rim, within sight of the trailhead, a distance that feels agonizingly short, but might as well be 100 miles when your body has reached its absolute limit. It's a reminder that the canyon is a place where you must respect your own boundaries as much as the park's rules. He was a man who likely enjoyed the outdoors and wanted to see one of the world's wonders, but he chose a day when the canyon was closed for business to anyone who wasn't prepared for a life-or-death struggle. His death was a preventable tragedy, a result of a decision to fight a battle against the elements that he was never going to win. The Colorado River is the lifeblood of the Grand Canyon, a powerful, silt-laden force that has spent millions of years carving the landscape. For many tourists, a commercial rafting trip is the ultimate way to see the canyon, a guided adventure that feels like a safe, organized excursion. But the river is not a theme park ride. It is a wild, unpredictable environment with rapids that can flip a multi-ton raft in a heartbeat. In August 2024, an 80-year-old man was part of a commercial trip navigating Fossil Rapid, a notorious stretch of whitewater, known for its powerful waves and complex hydraulics. As the raft entered the churning water, a massive wave or a sudden shift in the current caused the boat to flip, dumping everyone into the frigid, turbulent river. For an 80-year-old, the shock of the cold water combined with the violence of the rapid is an immense physical trauma. He was swept into the current, likely struggling to keep his head above the white foam as the river pulled him through the rocks. Although his group managed to pull him from the water and begin CPR almost immediately, he could not be revived. Even with park rangers arriving by helicopter to take over the resuscitation efforts, the damage was done. His death was the 13th in the park that year, a statistic that underscores a hard truth. There's no such thing as a safe way to experience the Grand Canyon's extremes. People often sign up for these trips thinking the guides will protect them from all danger, but in a place like Fossil Rapid, the river is the one in charge. The man's age certainly played a role in his inability to survive the immersion, but the core of the tragedy was the underestimation of the environment. The Colorado River is a place of immense power, and when you enter its rapids, you are stepping into a world where a single wave can change everything. He died pursuing a bucket list dream, a reminder that even the most professional guidance cannot fully insulate you from the raw, lethal reality of the natural world. The river doesn't care about your age or your experience. It only cares about the physics of the water, and on that August afternoon, the water was more than he could handle. The Grand Canyon is a masterpiece of time and erosion, a place that demands our respect as much as our admiration. But as we've seen, that respect is often the first thing to vanish when a camera is in hand or a shortcut is in sight. The boundaries, the warnings, and the heat are not obstacles to be overcome. They are the reality of a landscape that does not negotiate. Whether you are standing on the rim or floating on the river, the canyon is always teaching a lesson in humility. The most important thing you can bring to the Grand Canyon isn't a high-end camera or the best hiking gear. It's the common sense to know when to step back. Stay on the trails, respect the sun, and never forget that the most beautiful view in the world is the one you get to walk away from. The canyon has been here for millions of years, and it will be here tomorrow. Make sure you are too. Take care of yourselves out there, and always remember that nature doesn't have a safety net. In May 2018, in the forested roadside near Papadahandi, Nabarangpur district, Odisha, India, Prabhu Badara, a local driver, was returning from a wedding with several passengers in his SUV. The journey was uneventful until Prabhu spotted an injured wild bear near the roadside. He stopped the vehicle, not out of concern for the animal's welfare, but because he saw an opportunity for a unique photograph. His passengers warned him against approaching the distressed creature, but Prabhu, confident in his ability to handle the situation, ignored their pleas. He believed he could get close enough for a selfie, a picture that would undoubtedly impress his friends and family. As Prabhu approached the bear, which was clearly in pain and agitated, he pulled out his phone, ready to capture the moment. The bear, sensing a threat or perhaps simply reacting to the intrusion, moved towards him. Prabhu, still focused on his phone, tried to take the picture. In an instant, the bear lunged, knocking him down. The scene quickly devolved into chaos. Bystanders, instead of intervening, began to shout and film the unfolding tragedy on their phones. A stray dog, seemingly more courageous than the human onlookers, attempted to distract the bear by biting it, but its efforts were futile. The bear continued its brutal assault, mauling Prabhu with bites and claws, inflicting massive trauma and causing severe blood loss. The attack continued until Prabhu lay motionless. The sheer brutality of the attack, witnessed and filmed by his own companions, painted a grim picture of human folly. The bear, driven by instinct and pain, showed no mercy. Forest officials later confirmed that Prabhu Batra died on the spot. His body was recovered after the bear was tranquilized. The incident was officially classified as a wildlife attack triggered by his attempt at a selfie. Local news coverage highlighted the disturbing fact that witnesses were more concerned with filming the incident than with attempting to rescue him. This tragic event served as a grim example of the dangerous selfie culture that has emerged in recent years, where the pursuit of a viral moment can override basic instincts of self-preservation and human compassion. Prabhu's decision to ignore clear warnings and approach a wild, injured animal for a photograph cost him his life, a stark reminder that nature's boundaries are not to be trifled with. His story became a chilling testament to the fact that some experiences are best observed from a safe distance. Marius Els, a 40-year-old Army major from Free State, South Africa, believed he had a special connection with animals. In 2005, he rescued a 5-month-old hippopotamus calf from a flood and named him Humphrey. Marius raised Humphrey on his farm, treating the massive animal like a son. He would often swim with Humphrey in the Vaal River, ride on his back, and even brush his teeth. Despite the inherent danger of hippos, which are responsible for more human deaths in Africa than any other large animal, Marius was convinced that Humphrey was different, that their bond transcended the wild instincts of the beast. He often boasted about his unique relationship with the hippo, inviting friends to witness their interactions. However, Humphrey's behavior was not always docile. There were reports of the hippo chasing people and displaying aggressive tendencies, yet Marius dismissed these incidents, attributing them to Humphrey's playful nature or misunderstanding. He continued to interact with the 1.2-ton animal as if it were a domesticated pet, ignoring the warnings from friends and family who recognized the immense risk involved. Marius's dream was to fully domesticate Humphrey, to prove that even the most dangerous creatures could be tamed with love and patience. He saw Humphrey not as a wild animal, but as a unique companion, a testament to his own extraordinary connection with nature. He often stated that Humphrey was like a human being to him, a sentiment that tragically underestimated the hippo's true nature. In November 2011, Marius Els was found dead in the Vaal River, having been bitten repeatedly by Humphrey. The exact circumstances of the attack remain unclear, but it is believed that Marius was attempting to interact with the hippo when the animal, acting on its natural instincts, turned on him. The dream of a man and his pet hippo ended in a brutal reality. The incident shocked the world, serving as a tragic illustration of the perils of underestimating wild animals, regardless of any perceived bond. Marius's story became a cautionary tale about the fine line between human affection and animal instinct, a line that once crossed can have fatal consequences. Humphrey, the hippo he considered family, ultimately became his undoing, a powerful reminder that some creatures, no matter how familiar, will always remain wild. The sheer force of the hippo's jaws left no doubt about the animal's deadly power. In May 2024, in Homer, Alaska, Dale Chorman, a 70-year-old longtime resident, was known for his passion for wildlife photography. An experienced outdoorsman, Dale possessed extensive knowledge of local wildlife, particularly moose. He and a friend ventured out deliberately to find and photograph a cow. Moose with her newborn calves, a scene he knew would be incredibly intimate and rare. His goal was to capture close-up, intimate images of the calves shortly after their birth, believing his experience and understanding of moose behavior would keep him safe. He had spent years honing his craft, and this was an opportunity he couldn't pass up. As they moved through dense brush, they located the cow moose and her two calves lying down. Dale, camera ready, focused on spotting the calves through the vegetation. However, his pursuit of the perfect shot led him to disregard the inherent danger of approaching a mother moose with her young. A cow moose with calves is one of the most protective and aggressive animals in the Alaskan wilderness, known to charge anything perceived as a threat. Dale's proximity left him almost no distance or warning time when the moose suddenly charged from cover. The suddenness of the attack left no room for escape. In a terrifying instant, the cow moose, exploded out of the brush, catching Dale completely off guard. His friend managed to escape, but Dale was overtaken. The moose, in a ferocious display of maternal instinct, repeatedly kicked and stomped him with her front hooves. The attack was brutal and relentless, inflicting crushed ribs, internal bleeding, and severe head trauma. Dale was pronounced dead at the scene. His friend immediately called emergency services, but by the time troopers and medics arrived, it was too late to revive him. The image of the massive animal attacking the photographer was a chilling testament to the wild. Dale's family, while grieving, acknowledged that he understood the dangers, but accepted them for the chance at a great wildlife photograph. Officials and media used the incident to underline the critical importance of maintaining a safe distance from wildlife, especially during calving season. Alaska wildlife authorities reiterated that more people are injured by moose than by bears, emphasizing the unpredictable and powerful nature of these animals. Dale Chorman's tragic death serves as a stark reminder that even experienced outdoorsmen can fall victim to the raw power of nature when their passion for a photograph overrides their judgment, proving that some moments are simply not worth the risk. His legacy became a cautionary tale, a grim warning. In February 2024, at the Sri Venkateswara Zoological Park in Tirupati Zoo, Andhra Pradesh, India, Prahlad Gujar, a 38-year-old man, made a fatal decision. Prahlad, who reportedly worked as a laborer or farmer from a nearby area, had no authorization to enter any animal enclosure. Yet, driven by a desire for a thrilling selfie or a very close video with the lion named Dongalpur, he climbed over a roughly 25-foot barrier that separated him from the dangerous predator. Witnesses spotted him scaling the security fence and immediately shouted warnings, urging him to stop and come back. But Prahlad ignored their desperate pleas, his focus solely on the lion and the potential for a viral moment. He seemed to believe that the lion would somehow be docile, a dangerous miscalculation. As Prahlad dropped himself inside the enclosure, he began to walk towards the lion. The zoo staff, realizing the gravity of the situation, intensified their warnings, but it was too late. Dongalpur, the majestic lion, moved towards the intruder. Prahlad, perhaps realizing the immense danger he was in, panicked and attempted to climb a tree inside the habitat, seeking refuge from the approaching beast. However, the lion was quicker. It pulled him down from the tree, and the attack began. The scene was horrific, unfolding in front of horrified onlookers who could do nothing but watch. The sheer power of the lion was on full display as it overpowered the man. Prahlad Gujar was mauled to death by the lion. Later reports described his body as largely intact except for a fatal neck wound, indicating the swift and brutal nature of the attack. He died quickly from neck trauma and massive blood loss. The investigation revealed that Prahlad had deliberately defeated a tall security barrier to enter the lion enclosure, ignoring shouted warnings from zoo staff. His retreat towards the tree was a desperate, but ultimately futile, attempt to escape. Zoo staff cleared visitors and worked to separate the lion from the victim. Once the lion was driven off or secured, they recovered his body and sent it for autopsy. The incident was a stark reminder that even in a zoo, wild animals retain their predatory instincts. The aftermath sparked national and international attention as another selfie with lion death. Media outlets labeled him a selfie seeker who ignored repeated staff warnings. Zoo officials expressed stress that the lion behaved normally and blamed the human for climbing in. This tragic incident underscored the extreme dangers of disregarding safety protocols in zoos and the potentially deadly consequences of seeking close encounters with wild animals for social media fame. Prahlad's pursuit of a photograph cost him his life, a stark reminder that the boundaries set in place are for protection, not for challenge. His story became a grim testament to the fact that the desire for fame can lead to a permanent end. In December 2025, in a rural village in India, a wild elephant had wandered close to human habitation. This was not an uncommon occurrence, but it always drew a crowd. Villagers gathered to watch and film the magnificent animal from a distance, understanding the power and unpredictability of such a creature. However, one local man, a 33-year-old whose name was not widely reported in English-language outlets, saw this as an opportunity for something more. He wanted a close-up selfie, a picture that would showcase his bravery and proximity to the wild. He believed that by approaching slowly, he could capture a truly unique image. Despite vocal warnings from witnesses and the inherent danger of approaching a wild elephant, the man walked much closer than anyone else. He edged closer and closer, ignoring the shouts and pleas from the onlookers who recognized the escalating risk. His focus was entirely on his phone, trying to frame the perfect shot, seemingly oblivious to the immense power and potential aggression of the animal before him. He stood directly in front of the elephant, in open ground, with no solid object between them, a decision that would prove to be fatal. The air was thick with tension as the man continued his reckless advance. The wild elephant, feeling threatened or simply reacting to the intrusion into its space, suddenly charged. The man, caught completely off guard, had no time to react. The elephant trampled, stamped, and crushed his body with immense force. Onlookers screamed, but no one could intervene. The attack was swift and brutal. The elephant eventually moved away, leaving the man's lifeless body behind. Local authorities were called, and he was pronounced dead at the scene. The force of the elephant's charge left no doubt about its power. The investigation confirmed that the man died from massive blunt force trauma and internal injuries. The incident quickly spread online as a horrifying example of a selfie-induced death. Officials once again urged the public to keep safe distances from elephants and never try to take selfies with them. This tragedy highlighted the critical importance of respecting wildlife and understanding that these animals, especially when wild, are not props for human entertainment or social media posts. The man's fatal encounter with the elephant served as a grim reminder that the desire for a thrilling photograph can lead to devastating consequences when the boundaries of nature are ignored. His story became another entry in the list of human-wildlife conflicts. In June 2015, Catherine Chappell, a 29-year-old American film editor known for her work on Game of Thrones, was on a safari in Lion Park near Johannesburg, South Africa. The park offered visitors the unique experience of driving through enclosures where lions roamed freely. Despite clear warnings to keep windows closed, Catherine, eager to capture close-up photos of a lioness, made a critical error. She rolled down her window, exposing herself to the unpredictable nature of the wild predator. Her guide, Pierre Potgieter, immediately noticed her window was open and tried to intervene, but it was too late. The allure of the perfect shot proved to be a fatal temptation. The lioness, sensing an opportunity or perhaps feeling threatened by the open window and the human presence, lunged. In a terrifying instant, the animal bit Catherine, pulling her through the open window. The attack was sudden and brutal. Pierre, the guide, desperately tried to push the lioness away and close the window, but the powerful animal was relentless. He sustained injuries himself in his valiant attempt to save her. The scene was chaotic and horrifying, unfolding rapidly before other tourists. The screams of the onlookers and the force of the lioness created a scene of terror. Catherine Chappell died from her injuries at the scene. The lioness inflicted severe trauma, and despite immediate efforts, she could not be saved. The investigation confirmed that Catherine had violated park rules by opening her window, a decision that directly led to the fatal attack. Park officials reiterated the importance of adhering to safety regulations, emphasizing that these rules are in place to protect visitors from the inherent dangers of interacting with wild animals. The incident sparked a global discussion about tourist behavior in wildlife parks and the responsibility of individuals to respect the boundaries set for their safety. Her death served as a grim reminder that even in seemingly controlled environments, the wild remains wild. Catherine's death became a widely reported tragedy, serving as a stark reminder of the consequences of underestimating wild animals. Her desire for a unique photograph, a close encounter with a majestic predator, ultimately cost her life. The irony was palpable. She sought to capture the beauty of the wild, but instead, she became a victim of its raw power. Her story underscored that even in controlled environments like safari parks, wild animals retain their instincts, and human actions can trigger devastating reactions. The boundaries, whether physical or behavioral, are there for a reason, and crossing them can have irreversible consequences. Her final moments became a chilling testament to the price of recklessness. In early July 2025, Omar Farang Zin, a 49-year-old Italian motorcyclist, was on a touring trip through Romania, specifically in the Carpathian Mountains of Argeș County. This region is known for its scenic routes and, unfortunately, for wild brown bears that often appear by the roadside. Omar, a keen photographer, had been stopping frequently to enjoy the scenery and, more dangerously, to interact with the wild bears. He had reportedly been feeding the bears to lure them closer, hoping for more dramatic photos and selfies, a practice that had been ongoing for several days, as evidenced by images found on his phone. He believed he had established a rapport with these animals. On the day of the attack, Omar stopped his motorcycle and, despite local warnings not to feed or approach bears, he ignored them. He had even returned to the same spot where he had previously encountered a mother bear with cubs, one of the most clearly dangerous situations in bear behavior. With his phone out, he stood just a few meters from the bear, feeding and photographing it. He was focused on capturing the perfect shot, believing his previous interactions had created a bond or, at least, a tolerance with the animal. The scene was a tragic ballet of human arrogance and animal instinct. The bear, likely a mother protecting her cubs, suddenly charged. Omar had almost no time to react. The bear knocked him down, dragged him off the roadside into the nearby forest, and mauled him. The attack was swift and brutal, inflicting severe bites and trauma. Other motorists and emergency services were alerted after his motorcycle was found abandoned. Searchers later found his mauled body in the forest, along with his phone, which contained images of him feeding and photographing the bear at close range. The discovery painted a clear picture of the events. Omar Farang Zin died from his injuries before rescuers could arrive. Romanian forestry officials confirmed from his phone that he had been feeding the bear, prompting debate about killing the wild animal for reacting to human provocation. Commenters and locals online described his actions as shockingly reckless. Omar's repeated disregard for safety, his deliberate provocation of a wild animal, and his pursuit of dangerous selfies ultimately led to his demise. His story is a chilling example of how human recklessness and the desire for a thrilling photograph can lead to tragic and entirely preventable outcomes. The Carpathian Mountains are beautiful, but they are also home to wild, unpredictable creatures, and those boundaries must be respected. His final act instead captured his own end. Which of these deaths feels the most preventable? Drop your answer in the comments. If this stayed with you, hit like and subscribe so the next story finds you. Stay sharp out there.